What's happening?
They're starting to come through, and I can't stop them.
Welcome back, Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. Spider-Man No Way Home is right around the corner, and everyone is talking about the returning villains and obsessed about whether or not the previous Spider-Man will appear. But did we forget about Doctor Strange? It is Stephen's botched spell that brings all the villains back, and the events of No Way Home will have major consequences for Doctor Strange and the multiverse. Based on the trailer, Spider-Man will clash with Doctor Strange after discovering the fate of these villains.
You're flying out into the darkness to fight ghosts.
What do you mean?
They all die fighting Spider-Man.
It's their fate.
Now, all of these villains are meant to die, and Stephen is planning to send them back to their original universes, where they will serve their predetermined destinies. And this kind of reminds me of the TVA and how they prune variants. Yeah, it's not the same, but I believe that the similarities here are not a coincidence. The events of No Way Home will lead directly into Multiverse of Madness, a massive movie where Strange will team up with Wanda, but also with Loki. And the revelations about the sacred timeline, the multiversal war, and Kang are likely to provoke Strange to take drastic measures to protect the universe. And these actions might parallel those of He Who Remains and the inevitable creation of the sacred timeline.
That spell that you botched started pulling in visitors from every universe.
The multiverse is real?
Okay, let's recap how we get to the Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home. Mysterio framed Spider-Man for his death, and then he revealed to the world that he is Peter Parker. The consequences result in Stephen performing the spell that will make everyone in the world forget that Peter is Spider-Man.
The entire world's about to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Everyone?
But this spell goes terribly wrong, opening tears in reality, bringing the villains from other universes to the MCU. Strange equips Peter with this magic box thingy, which I'll wager will trap the villains, sort of like the Ghostbusters ghost trap thingy. And it's fitting, since all of these villains are ghosts too, they all die, or at least they were meant to.
In their universe, they all die fighting Spider-Man.
Osborn is supposed to be skewed by his glider, while Octavius will drown after destroying his tiny sun machine. But here's the thing, the other villains didn't die in their original timelines. Electro sort of blew up, and he's made of electricity, and we saw that he can reform himself like Dr. Manhattan. Both Sandman and Lizard were alive the last time we saw them, so they weren't meant to die. Also, there's Venom. We still don't know if he's even going to be in the movie, but he was transported to the same universe. But he didn't die either. But as we established in this video, we believe that the returning villains are actually variants.
Wait, excuse me?
Meaning they are all slightly different versions from the characters we saw in previous movies. If these villains are in fact variants, that means that their existence creates multiple Nexus events, making them threats to the universe. Regardless, the villains' very existence in the MCU is threatening reality, so they must be sent back to their timelines and die, something that will restore the natural order of the universes.
Look, there has to be another way!
There isn't. They're a danger to our universe.
This is the reason why Spider-Man and Doctor Strange clash, because one wants to save the villains while the other realizes the undeniable truth of predetermination and the rules of the timeline. Remember this, because it'll be important later.
What is your job exactly besides making balloon animals?
Protecting your reality.
Protecting the timeline is exactly why the TVA was created, to preserve the sacred timeline. And to do so, the TVA agents hunt down variants. Some they prune, sending them to the void to be eaten by Alioth. Others they just brainwashed into becoming new TVA agents. Now I'm sure Strange isn't planning on feeding the villains to Alioth, but he does intend to send the villains back to their respective universes, where they will die at the hands of their Spider-Men. It might be grim, but that is the only way to maintain the correct flow of the timeline. And Doctor Strange knows that because he's not a stranger to the idea of following a predetermined destiny. That's what his Origins movie established, but also that's what happened in Infinity War. Stephen made it clear that he's willing to take extreme measures to protect the universe.
If it comes to saving you, or the kid, or the time stone, I will not hesitate to let either of you die. I can't, because the universe depends on it.
This establishes his commitment to the job, and since it's about protecting reality, he must be logical and not allow empathy to interfere with his responsibility. When Stephen gave Thanos the Time Stone, it wasn't to save Tony's life, but it was about following the set path of the timeline, that one perfect outcome that he saw earlier. Strange knew that there cannot be any deviation from the timeline that he saw. Otherwise, the timeline would branch and the future he saw wouldn't be fulfilled.
You said 1 out of 14 million we win, yeah?
Tell me this is it.
If I tell you what happens, it won't happen.
So following the destined path of the sacred timeline is the only outcome where his universe survives. And this leads us back to the events of Loki. The reason why the sacred timeline is safe is because it's isolated from any other timeline in the multiverse.
Once I isolated our timeline, all I have to do is manage the flow of time and prevent any further branches.
Under He Who Remains, the TVA pruned variants and prevent Nexus events, ensuring that the sacred timeline wouldn't branch off and merge with the rest of the multiverse. But the timeline fractured after Sylvie killed He Who Remains. However, this exact outcome was in fact meant to happen because of predetermination. Every being that exists in the sacred timeline follows a script. Their destinies are set in stone. Choice is an illusion.
Every step you took to get here, I paved the road. You just walked down it.
Even He Who Remains is trapped in the same predetermined path, because he too had to follow this same script. Now this is something we talked about before, specifically in this video, where we theorize that the MCU is trapped in a perpetual time loop. And He Who Remains' final words serve as evidence of this. He knows that time is a loop. His death is the inception of the same multiversal war that he stopped eons ago by creating the sacred timeline. Now, Kang and his variants will battle across the multiverse and threaten reality. But Nathaniel Richards will discover and weaponize Alioth and end the multiversal war and create the sacred timeline, and a new cycle will begin. It's all inevitable.
You plunge your blade in my chest, and an infinite amount of me start another multiversal war, and I just end up right back here anyways.
But now, the sacred timeline has been diluted with the rest of the timelines in the multiverse, and this is most likely the cause for the events of No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and the next major MCU crossover event, which is shaping up to be Secret Wars. All of this is crucial because Doctor Strange is going to meet a Loki variant in the Multiverse of Madness.
But someone is coming. Countless different versions of a very dangerous person, and they're all set on war. We need to prepare.
But remember, Multiverse of Madness is going to be the culmination of the events of No Way Home, Loki, and WandaVision. By that point, Strange is going to be knee-deep in multiverse problems. And once Strange learns the truth from Loki, he will arrive at the same conclusion that He Who Remains did. The only way to save his universe is to isolate it from the rest of the multiverse and create a new sacred timeline. To clarify, I'm not suggesting that Doctor Strange will form the TVA with He Who Remains, though that's certainly a possibility.
We gotta properly test this theory.
One of the best directions Marvel could take with Strange is if he becomes obsessed with saving the universe and preventing the multiversal war, the same way Tony was obsessed about stopping Thanos. It created so many fascinating stories for Tony, provoking him to take drastic measures to protect the world.
Thanos has been inside my head for 6 years, since he sent an army to New York, and now he's back.
We can question Tony's ethics, but in the end, he tried to prevent something terrible, and that should be Strange's arc in the next few years. And him coming to blows with Spider-Man about how to deal with the villains in No Way Home is the first step in that arc. I assume that by the end of No Way Home, Peter and Strange will send all the villains back to their universes. And I guess by that point, Peter and Steven will work as a team. But with the impending doom of existence, Strange will feel ironically validated for his cold and calculated logic about how to maintain the correct flow of the timeline. He will understand that despite it not being the most heroic thing to do, it is what he must do, just like how the Ancient One had to draw power from the Dark Dimension.
I've hated drawing power from the Dark Dimension. But as you well know, sometimes one must break the rules in order to serve the greater good.
After Multiverse of Madness, I believe Strange will begin working on ways to prevent the multiversal war and plan for the worst possible outcome, where he must isolate his timeline from the rest of the multiverse. And I got some fun ideas on how this could work. One option is the Illuminati. In the comics, they are a team of heroes working in the shadows, making tough calls to protect the world. Now, we actually made a whole video focusing on how I think the Illuminati would work in the MCU. The Illuminati direction does seem to be likely, where Steven will assemble a team of heroes who are willing to get their hands dirty to save the universe. But why not the Avengers? Why would Steve form a secret team instead of just working in the open with the other heroes? Well, the events of No Way Home will be a harsh lesson for Strange. He gets how the multiverse works. It's not about good versus evil, it's about the harsh and callous nature of reality. And yet, despite the fate of the universe in the balance, Spider-Man is going to try to prevent Strange from doing what's necessary in protecting the universe. And other heroes will most likely do the same in the future, because they will try to find another way, the heroic way.
How are you guys planning on beating that?
Together.
I said we'd lose. You said...
And we'll do that together too.
And guess what, Cap? We lost.
So this is why Strange will decide to work in the shadows with like-minded heroes who are willing to make the hard calls. The Illuminati could be a type of early version of the TVA, as they will protect the timeline and deal with any invaders from other universes. And the way to deal with these invaders isn't to imprison them, but to remove them from the timeline.
Finger to the throat means death.
This is how the Illuminati will clash with Kang, or at least this is how I could see it happening. And thanks to Loki, the Illuminati will be aware of the multiversal war, so they will take drastic actions to protect their universe. Maybe, thanks to Wanda's chaos magic, they will create a type of magical shield around their timeline, and that's how they protect their universe. But remember, other universes will be aware of this situation as well, so it's only a matter of time till Strange and the Illuminati must face factions from other universes, possibly leading to battles across the multiverse. But there's another cool possibility, and it's something that I would like to call the Strange Council.
That feels weird, but I'll allow it.
So He Who Remains is revealed that his variants formed a type of an alliance across the multiverse,
using the best of their universes to improve the others,
which is based on the Council of Kangs from the comics. But there's also an interdimensional Council of Reeds, and as the name suggests, it's an alliance of alternate versions of Reed Richards from different universes. And in case you didn't know, Reed Richards is also Mr. Fantastic. The Council played a crucial role in the events that led to 2015's Secret Wars storyline, which is likely the basis for the MCU's version of the story. But I'm hoping for the Strange Council, an alliance of Doctor Strange variants. Oh! This will make the most sense, considering that Strange is set to play a huge role in the multiverse conflict. That will be a great way to bring the Doctor Strange from What If into the MCU. Plus, I mean, think about all the other possible variants we could see.
Doctor Strange.
That's pretty good. But it's taken.
Maybe a universe where Steven has a suit of armor like Iron Man, using both magic and tech since he's a man of science. Or a Doctor Strange who has all the Infinity Stones. Or even a universe where Steven never became a wizard and instead he got hit by a... okay, what would be cool? What if Stephen Strange was bit by a vampire? Huh? Stephen Strange is a vampire. Now that would be awesome.
Ooh, so exciting.
I think we could see this happen when Strange will search for answers in the multiverse, and in his travels between universes, he will encounter other variants of himself. Because of how the multiverse works, other versions of Strange will seek the same thing as him, and that could either lead to an alliance between multiple variants of Strange, or most likely, a battle between them all. And that's because all variants of Strange will want the same thing, to create the sacred timeline for their respective universes. And there can only be one sacred timeline, so that is a recipe for disaster and conflict. But in the end, it all comes down to the time loop. The inevitability of the timeline keeps coming up. There's no escape from it. It's present in every universe, as it was established in What If.
You foresaw every moment from the failed Infinity Crusher to Killmonger's betrayal and your sacrifice.
Even the Watcher is a prisoner of predetermination. In the end, Steven might come to the painful conclusion that there's no way to escape destiny, that he must follow the events that will lead to the multiversal war. He isn't the one who creates the sacred timeline, it's not his role. Nathaniel Richards must become He Who Remains, and he will create the sacred timeline, and eons later this entire process will begin once again, over and over and over. Maybe He Who Remains was right, that there's no way to protect their reality, that the only answer is his way, and the TVA.
I've gone through every scenario. This is the only way. The TVA, it works.
But this is the MCU we're talking about, so I doubt things will end on such a sour note. Eventually, the Avengers and Doctor Strange will find a way to save their universe. As far as how that happens, well, look, that's for Marvel Studios to figure out. I'm only here to go nuts with theories.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
That's going to be the fascinating question for the next few years. What wins in the end? Free will or predetermination? So what do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.